If you're new to this channel, you may consider subscribing and hit the bell icon so that you continue to receive the updates. Also, after watching this video, you may want to refer to some of the playlists that we have created for people who are interested in in-depth knowledge. These are the videos in the right sequence, which will give you thorough knowledge of the subject. Please share it with all others who might benefit. Let's get started. So the dataset that we're using for this exercise is known as the Parkinson's dataset. And it has been attributed by this research paper, which is known as Exploiting Nonlinear Recurrence in Fractal Scaling Properties for Voice Disorder Detection. This is a dataset contributed by an Oxford researcher, Max A. Little and team, and these are the features. So essentially, to give you the background of this dataset contains voice samples. Of course, we do not have the voices here. We have the frequencies and other pieces of information in a structured format available, in a row-column format available with us. But the end objective of using the voice samples and various attributes from voice is to predict whether a person is healthy or is suffering from Parkinson's disease. It has around 200 rows and about 23 features in total. So we'll work on this data and find our way to choose the best features using the feature selection module and try multiple techniques here. This link will be provided to you in the description. You can refer to this dataset whenever needed. So we are at the Google Collaboratory now, and I have already pointed to the data source, which is Parkinson's. We begin by importing the basic libraries, NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib for basic visualization. We'll also be performing scaling because some of these techniques are sensitive towards the scale of the variables. Then this is the module that we're going to focus on primarily, which is feature selection from scikit-learn. To begin with, we'll do variance threshold and gradually we'll move on to other techniques. We will, of course, be interested in looking at the model performance. And for that, we are taking up the cross-validation score. And we can choose various models. To begin with, we'll stick to logistic regression model. And then we will also be looking at the model performance measures for which we are using F1 score. Now, we are not going to go too deep into the data pre-processing here because that's something which has already been discussed in several other videos. We'll stick to the idea of feature selection here. Nor we are going to focus too much on the nitty-gritties of the models and their prerequisites. We'll take a simple model and continue to work on it. So to begin with, let's just import all the necessary libraries and read the data using pd read CSV. This is the file that we got from Kaggle. And we are just separating X and Y features because that's how scikit-learn models essentially expect the inputs. So there is a column called name, which is the first column in the dataset. Of course, that will not be a predictor of whether the person has Parkinson's or not. And there's a column called status, which is the target column. So these are not the X features. Name is not a predictor. And our Y variable is status, so we are separating it. And we are storing it as Y separately. So let's just run this. And let's look at the shape of the input data frame, which is 195 rows and 22 features. 22 excluding the target. If we include the target, it'll be 23. Now, variance threshold is sensitive towards the scale of the features. The calculation of the variance, if you know, involves the magnitude of the feature. It's always sensitive towards the scale. So we don't want to give any undue advantage to a feature based on its scale or the choice of measurement. And that's why we are performing a scaling technique. Why I'm using robust scaler? Because we've not really looked at the presence of outliers. We don't want to do that here because that will be a digression. In such cases, when you may have outliers in your data, you may proceed with a robust scaler, which does the scaling based on the interquartile range. This is something we've explained at length in our data preparation videos. In case you've not watched, you may refer to the playlist. But let's just do the scaling so that we can work on the scaled data. So the entire data has now been scaled, and we are trying a couple of threshold values. So threshold is a value that we need to pass. It has to be a value between 0 to 0.5. And we don't know what is the right value to begin with, so we are trying over a range of values. And what we are doing is, we have created an empty list where we'll keep on updating the selected feature count. So based on the threshold, we'll get to know how many features have been selected, how many features we should retain in a way. That's what we'll be capturing here. First of all, this is a classification problem. And in a classification problem, when you want to give equal importance to recall and precision, you may want to use F1 score, which is a harmonic mean of precision and recall. So we can bring our customized scoring functions using make scorer. We're giving the input here as F1 score, and then we are creating two more empty lists. First is the list of F1 scores for each of these thresholds, and second is median F1 score, because we'll be doing some kind of a cross-validation, and for cross-validation, we'll get multiple F1 scores. We'll take the median of all those. This is an iterative task because we are going to repeat the same exercise for every single threshold that we choose. So we are saying for each threshold in the list of thresholds, these are the values, for each value in this list, we are going to do the same task. We are going to call the variance threshold from the scikit-learn feature selection. We will pass the appropriate threshold. Then we will do a fit transform on the scaled data. And then finally, we will append the select feature counts, which is here. This will be updated as per each threshold. And shape 1 means we'll be selecting the number of columns. Then we are fitting the logistic regression model, and we are doing the cross-validation score, which needs the input as the model, the feature set, which is the X and Y, and which is the X feature set we are giving here, the one that has been fit transformed after the variance threshold application. We are doing 10-fold cross-validation and taking a custom model scoring parameter. Once we do this, we are going to update these two lists. We will update the F1 score corresponding to each threshold, and we will update the median F1 score corresponding to each threshold. Now, if you got this much code here, which might seem a little complex at first, it is essentially making our life a lot easier. So let me run this and we'll see what is the outcome we get when we apply this. So we are creating two plots. First is a plot where we are going to look at a relationship between the number of features selected against the threshold. So for each choice of threshold that we made here, in this case, how many features were finally chosen. And then we are also analyzing the F1 score corresponding to the number of features. So based on the choice of features, how does the F1 score look like? These are the two plots that we are creating. First is going to be a simple line plot, and second is going to be a box plot. And we are using plt.subplot to create these plots next to each other. Pretty basic syntax. Let's just run this, and here's the outcome. So see, from threshold 0 to 0.1 to 0.2 to 0.3, there was no difference. We continued to work with all 22 features. But when we changed the threshold to 0.4, we were able to cut down one feature. When we further changed the threshold to 0.5, we are able to cut down 3 features from the overall features. We had 22 features to begin with, but threshold of 0.5 suggests that we can work with just 19 features, which means we can get rid of 3 features. And how does this number of features that we select affect the performance of the model? So we've created these box plots based on 10 cross-validation scores because we did a 10-fold cross-validation here. So coming back, you can see the choice of number of features on x-axis and the F1 score on y-axis. Now, if you see the number of features as 19, it has nearly the same median, in fact, a slightly better median performance compared to the rest of the features. If you want to exactly see what these values are, we can actually create a table for that. So what we are saying is that we will take the threshold, we'll take the feature count, and we will look at the median F1 score. Let's see. So if you see for the other choices of the number of features and thresholds, the F1 score is identical, 0.88. But for 19 features, actually a lesser number of features compared to the overall features, we have a better F1 score. Isn't it good that with 3 less features, we are able to get a better F1 score? So 0.5 is a better threshold choice here, and 19 is a better number of features for us to work with this data, and it gives us nearly 90% F1 score. So like I mentioned in the beginning, in this case, we are only focusing on the feature selection module. We are not focusing on train, test performance, and other comparisons. Focusing only on the technique, this just confirms that this as a threshold and these as the number of features give us the best result. Now let's move to the next technique, which is known as select k-best. So all the other imports stay identical for libraries. The only additional importing here that we need would be the select k-best class and an evaluation method. So if you remember the grid I showed you in the theory videos, if you're solving a classification problem, and if we are dealing with features which are numerical, we can use the fclassif method. We've explained other scoring functions in that video, so you may refer to it. So these are some of the steps that we've seen earlier as well. We have read the data, we have separated x and y, and we checked the shape of the data frame, just the x variables, and we perform scaling. So these steps stay pretty much as is, and we will now focus on the select k-best piece. So for select k-best, we need to try different values of k, and we don't know what exactly is the right value to begin with. So we can take from smaller values to a maximum value that will be the total number of features we have. So we have 22 features, that's the maximum we can take. And a smaller, we can start with something like a 5 or 4 or so. So we've started with 5 here and taken a couple of other values in between. We are once again updating a list, which will be selected feature counts based on the k-best. We have the same make scorer like the F1 score we saw earlier. We are appending 2 lists, One would be the F1 score based on the number of feature. Other would be the median F1 score, which we can compare which exactly is the best F1 score. Again, this is a repetitive exercise. So for each K in the set of K values that we have here, we are going to call the K best, and we are going to do a fit transformed on the scale data, and then we are going to append the list with the number of features selected. We are doing a logistic regression model, doing a cross-validation here, exactly the same way as we saw earlier, and then we are appending the F1 score list and the median. So let's run this, and then we'll be looking at an outcome that will be just one plot, which will tell us, based on the number of features, what's the distribution of F1 scores like, those 10-fold scores that we get. So you see this, on the x-axis, we have different number of features, and on the y-axis, we have the F1 scores. Now, if we want to find out what exactly is the best number of features that we may want to go with, we can just create this data frame. We have populated all these lists above, which talks about the number of features and the median scores. So let's just do this, and we'll get the outcome. So if you see, with 5 features, our F1 score is 87.5. With 10 features also, it's 87.5. With 15 features also, it's 87.5. With 20 features, it's a little better. And with 22 features, again, it's one and the same. So if you see here, you're using 17 less features, and the difference in F1 score is barely 1 point something. So if you think this difference is tolerable, then you can manage your work with relatively much lesser number of features, less than 1/4 of the number of features, and get a comparable output. And if it strictly matters that you want to go with a better F1 score, you can even manage with 20 features. Why would you go for 22? Maybe we can try other values in between as well. So the point is, we may not necessarily want to use all the features to get the best result. We can work with a limited subset of features and get a comparable outcome. That's select K-best. Moving on to recursive feature elimination. Again, all the other imports stay identical. We are just calling the RFE class. And how RFE works, it fits a model and then recursively tries to drop the features one at a time. So the initial steps are all identical. We've read the data, we've separated X and Y, we've checked the dimensions, and we have performed scaling. Scaling is not mandatory for a lot of models, but in general, if you perform scaling, it's not going to harm in any way. So we've just performed scaling here. And let's now go ahead and apply the RFE. So for RFE, again, we don't know what are the best number of features. This is an input that we need to give as a hyperparameter. So we are saying we'll create a list of features. We again created an empty list to update the feature count, created a scoring function, created 2 empty lists to update the F1 score raw values and the median, and same loop kind of a thing, where we are saying for each choice of number of features in the list of features, we are going to apply RFE. RFE requires the model as the input, requires the other input as the number of features to select, which will come through this list. Then we do a fit transform, and then we append the number of features as per each choice. And then finally, we fit the logistic regression model cross-validation score with 10-fold cross-validation and append these 2 lists. Actually, this line here is somewhat redundant because we are directly passing that number of features here. So it's going to take one and the same values, but it's okay because it's more or less in sync with the rest of the methods that we followed. So we'll just go ahead with it. Finally, we would want to be looking at an outcome where we will see, based on the choice of the number of features, what's the F1 score like. And we want to see that box plot. So we are plotting that here. So if you see, starting from 5 features up to 22 features, this is how the F1 score varies. And if you strictly want to monitor the median F1 score, we can populate that in this data frame. These lists have already been appended above, so we can just get the output. So again, for this, if you see, it's nearly the same kind of outcome. For 5 features, you're getting about 87.5 F1 score. For 10, again, that's one and the same. So between 5 and 10, obviously 5 is a better choice. If you want to take it slightly better, even 15 features give you as good F1 score as 22 features do. And of course, we can explore the values in between 10 to 15. It doesn't mean that we have to always take a step size of 5 from 10 to 15. We can try 11, 12, 13 as well. If any number of features, which is a smaller number of features, gives us a comparable F1 score, that will be the choice. We always try to keep the model simple. So we can once again see we could have managed with much lesser number of features than 22 features to predict the Parkinson's disease. Next, moving on to select from model. Again, just the class here, and everything here in this code is identical. We are reading the data, separating X and Y, applying the scaling method. Yes, select from model would require a threshold value to pass. And it compares the coefficients of the features or the feature importance with this threshold and all at once. And if there are features which have their coefficients of feature importance less than the threshold, they're all dropped at once. So again, it's an identical process. We're creating the scorer, we're creating these three lists, first to update the number of features, second to update the F1 scores, 10 F1 scores for each threshold, and then finally just the median score for each threshold. We're doing a select from model. It requires the input as the model as well as the threshold. So only difference you see here in these codes is that there is a choice from the feature selection module. It has its own specific requirements. In case of RFE, this was the model and the number of features to be selected. In case of select from model, it's the model and the threshold to be selected. And now you do fit transform and you append the list for the number of features. And then finally here, we can do a cross-validation, tenfold validation, append the F1 scores and the median. So let me just run this code for select from model and then run the second line of code as well. We are all set. And let's look at the outcome, which is going to be a box plot. Once again, it gives us the spread of F1 scores for the choice of number of features based on the threshold that we gave. And let's look at the best feature count that would have given us the best median F1 score. And in this case, you see, actually, the number of features as 8 gives you the F1 score, which is equivalent to 22 features. So the question is, in that case, why would you use 22 features if 8 features are able to give you that much? And please keep in mind, this is based on the grid that we passed here for the threshold. So if you think we can try different values of thresholds here, maybe a smaller or a bigger value, you can always try to alter that and settle for even lower number of features if needed. Generally, if we increase the threshold, the number of features will reduce. So that's why as we move from a 0.1 to a 0.5, you could see the number of features selected here have reduced from 22 to 8. So if we increase that threshold further, the value might further reduce. Next, we move on to sequential feature selector, and we will look at the same steps here, once again, reading the data, and everything is same, which we've already discussed a couple of times. Let's just apply the feature selector here. This is the identical code where we're given the number of features and we've done the make F1 scorer. This takes a little more time because it's going to try multiple models with varying number of features. So you may have to be a little more patient with this because it for sure is going to take relatively more time. But if you see in the meanwhile, these steps are very identical. The only change is this class, which is sequential feature selector, which requires us to pass the model, requires us to pass the number of features and mention the approach. So we are doing it in a forward way. For backward, in a way, we've already seen recursive feature elimination. So we are doing sequential feature selection, starting with no feature to one feature to more features one at a time. And that's how we are moving forward. And then now let's run this and see the outcome. So we have an outcome where we again have a similar plot, number of features as we move from 5 to 21, or we could have taken 22 also. And then we have the median F1 scores. And you can see the median already visually is high for these lesser number of features, right? 5 and 10 have a better median compared to 15, 20, and 21. If you exactly want to see the values, you can actually print this, and this is how it comes. So with 5 features alone, we have 93% F1 score. And with 21 features, the F1 score has come down by about 4%. So what is better? Lesser number of features are better here. So with this, we see there are multiple ways to reduce the number of features. Now, one thing that might bother you at this stage is, okay, so we've been able to cut down the number of features significantly, but how do I know what all features have been selected? This would pretty much be the same for all the classes available in scikit-learn feature selection module. And I'm showing it to you for sequential feature selector. So if this is our feature selector, which takes the input as the model and the choice of the number of features. We found 5 to be a good choice. We are going with a forward method and a cross-validation of 10. We simply fit the robust scale data to this. Again, scaling may or may not be mandatory depending on the choice of algorithm. Now, in order to get the feature names, we need this sequential feature selector, let's say this SFS, and then we will call a method called getSupport. And we are passing this to x.column. So as far as the feature names are concerned, those would not be different when it comes to whether you scale the data or not. So that's one and the same thing. There we are just looking at it from an index perspective that we want to get the names of those specific features which were shortlisted based on what? The sequential feature selection. So if we get a list of those, it displays these 5 features that we finally shortlisted. And you can try the same approach, the getSupport thing, for other classes in the scikit-learn feature selection module. It should work fine for you. That's pretty much about the feature selection module. I hope you get a lot of clarity on how you can cut down on the unnecessary features and work with the bare minimal that gives you a great result. Thank you.